Hello friends, welcome to this AWS session again. And in the last session, we covered all the deployment techniques, and the last deployment technique that we covered was OpsWorks. So by now we are all having an overview of JIML in AWS. What is JIML? How we can use it? We have idea of CloudFormation. We have idea of OpsWorks, and then we have also a little bit idea on Elastic Beanstalk, how these all work. So discussed an example on all of these techniques. And now what we are left with is scaling, how we can achieve scaling with these deployment techniques that we'll be discussing later. And now again, we will be shifting our focus to AWS security. So we had left the AWS security section in between, and now we will be resuming that. So in case you are watching directly, in case you have not watched all the deployment techniques, and if you don't know what JIML is, I would request you to go and watch those sections of the videos. And in this session, we will be discussing security groups. So we already had an overview of security groups. We'll be discussing it with examples now. So what are AWS security groups? So security groups basically act as virtual firewalls. So whenever some traffic leaves your EC2 instance or some traffic enters your EC2 instance, it goes through virtual firewall, which is provided by Amazon. And the rules configured for that firewall determine whether that traffic will be allowed or not. So we have two kinds of security groups. We have inbound security group, and then we have outbound security groups. So in inbound security groups, basically all the traffic that will enter AWS on those network or on that network, inbound security groups will be applied. So that means the traffic that will be entering into AWS instance, on that instance, inbound security groups will be applied, and all the traffic that will be leaving from AWS on that outbound security groups will be applied. And security groups basically consist of information. Let's say when we created an RDS session, we created a IDS, and then we allowed connection from port 3306. So we can configure from what sources or destination we want to allow the traffic. So we'll be discussing an example. So for that, let me first launch an EC2 instance. So this is our AWS homepage. Let's open EC2 in a separate tab. Here we have 0 running instances, so we'll launch an instance. So we'll say launch instance. We'll be launching Ubuntu. Next. We are not tagging it for now. So now, if you see this page, assign a security group. So if you do not create a security group on your own, if you don't select a like custom security group, you can, or AWS will automatically create a new security group and assign it to the instance. So here the default rule that is configured, that is SSH from port 22, we will select anywhere. So from anywhere, we will be able to connect to this SSH instance using port 22. So if you remember, once we can create this EC2 instance, then we can use putty with our key to connect to this SSH instance. So this, we are able to connect to that EC2 instance from putty only because we have configured a rule that we can connect to SSH. We can connect using SSH to this instance. If we remove this rule, then we won't be able to connect through putty also. So this is the rule, and this is the security rule that is configured. And the security group name you can see is launch wizard 2. So we can assign up to 5 security groups to an instance. So this is the first security group. So first of all, we'll be using the existing security group only, and then we will be creating some rules so that, and in this case, first of all, I'd like to explain you the scenario. We have discussed this scenario earlier as well using implementation. So we will try to ping to this EC2 instance using basically are local. So we'll say review and launch, say launch, acknowledge it, launch instance. So let's wait for it to gear up. We have our public DNS with us. Let's open CMD. So we'll say ping, instance is not up. Wait for the instance to be up and running, and then we'll be issuing a ping. Okay, so now our instance is up and running, and if this is the description tab of our instance, and if you'll see, we have a security group, and the security group for this EC2 instance is launch visit 2. If I'll select it, so you can see this is the description, and this is the inbound rules for incoming traffic and outbound rules. So by default, all the outbound traffic is allowed, and all the inbound traffic we need to configure whatever we want to give the access to. So again, this Amazon gives you this facility or this feature. It provides a virtual firewall, and it's on you what you want to allow and what you don't want to allow. The configuration is entirely up to your use case or up to your requirements. So for inbound, you can see we have selected SSH with port 22 from anywhere. So that means any other traffic to this EC2 instance will not be allowed. So if we'll try to issue a ping right now, it will obviously fail. So if you hit enter, so it says request timed out, because our instance is not expecting any connections from anywhere else except SSH over port 22. So what if we want to basically allow this ping to happen? So for that, either we can basically add security rule on this inbound traffic, or we can assign multiple security group. So there are various ways. So first way is obviously you can alter the inbound traffic what according to your needs, or we can have multiple security groups created also, and we can assign those security groups to our EC2 instance.